I'd like you to think back to the last time you were trucked head to head by a 6'2", 225-pound professional athlete running at you at full speed. Happens all the time, right? Alright, maybe not. Although this doesn't happen to everybody individually, this is the average Sunday afternoon for an NFL player. NFL players run the risk of developing numerous injuries throughout their career in football. I'm here to inform you of potentially their greatest sacrifice to their overall health and well-being once they hang up their cleats, CTE. I'm an avid viewer and fan of the National Football League, and I have researched multiple credible sources explaining this disease. Let's take a look at what CTE is, the causes of CTE, the signs and symptoms of this brain disease, and finally, an example of one NFL player who was diagnosed with it. Chronic traumatic encephalopathy. So, what exactly is this long and hard to pronounce term, and why is it so important? CTE is a progressive degenerative brain disease, which is typically found in the brains of athletes and some military veterans who have had a history of repetitive brain trauma. Degenerative, meaning that the repeated trauma taken to the brain will trigger the brain tissue to almost rot away. This disease is believed to be developed through multiple symptomatic concussions, but can also be found in individuals who have taken subconcussive hits that don't cause symptoms. I use the term believed because experts are still trying to understand how these repeated head traumas, including exactly how many injuries and the severity that those head injuries that might contribute to the changes in the brain which help to form CTE. It's a difficult thing to research and study as it cannot be truly diagnosed until an autopsy is done on specific sections of the brain. Here's a picture of a normal brain on the top and the brain of a former football player who was diagnosed with stage 4 CTE. Notice how much of the brain has degenerated. Obviously, this is one of the more extreme cases, but I think we can all agree that typically any degeneration in the brain at all is a bad thing. Now, let's take a look at what the symptoms of CTE are. As we already know, this disease is very difficult to diagnose and research. This in turn prevents experts from figuring out exactly what specific symptoms are linked to CTE. But out of the few cases which were proven to have CTE in the brain, post-autopsy of course, each have developed the same or very similar symptoms such as difficulty thinking clearly, impulsive behavior, depression, memory loss, difficulty planning tasks, emotional instability, substance abuse or misuse, and suicidal thoughts or behavior. Everything we have found up until now has shown that CTE only affects the brain. This explains why all the symptoms shown are behavioral, making it even more difficult to pinpoint if an individual is showing these symptoms solely because of CTE. These symptoms don't develop right after a head injury. Those of you who have been diagnosed with concussions before should know that. These changes in the brain can begin months, years, or even decades after brain trauma. Now, if you have been diagnosed with a concussion, please don't be afraid that in a few years you're going to start losing your mind. Remember, CTE is only developed through repeated head trauma to the brain. So as long as you don't leave here and continue to bang your head against a wall, you should be fine. I'd like to show you an example now of an NFL player who was diagnosed with CTE. This is Aaron Hernandez, a former tight end for the New England Patriots in the National Football League. His once promising career as a professional football player was abruptly halted as he was arrested and charged with first-degree murder of Odin Lloyd in 2013. And then later on, he was indicted with the connection of 2 murders and a drive-by shooting in 2012. Then, just days after being acquitted of the 2012 murders in 2017, he committed suicide in his jail cell. Now, there's no way of telling exactly why Aaron Hernandez did the things that he did. We know he had a promising career on a fantastic team in the NFL, which allowed him to flourish as a player. The only issues that he had before his charges was he tended to fail his drug tests for the NFL. Then later on, in 2017, doctors did an autopsy of Aaron Hernandez's brain. Considering his convictions and drug issues, he has shown obvious symptoms of CTE, including mood swings, aggression, depression, and drug abuse. This autopsy revealed that Aaron Hernandez had, in fact, been suffering from an advanced case of CTE. As you can see in this photo of Aaron's brain, his brain was much more damaged than the brain of a healthy 27-year-old. And even though CTE does not excuse him for his actions, it may be the reason why he acted like he did. It is obvious that NFL players are more prone to CTE than almost anyone else with the amount of head trauma they run the risk of receiving in every game they play. Even though player safety has increased tremendously in recent years, it is imperative for the NFL as a company to continue their research into limiting this brain trauma for their players. In conclusion, this may not be an issue that affects us that much individually as we aren't professional athletes. However, if we are more knowledgeable on this topic, maybe we can better appreciate what some of those players put themselves through for our own entertainment. Hopefully we all have a new respect for this dangerous game, and maybe I have been able to teach you something today about a lesser known subject. And if any of you are currently trying to get in the NFL, just please remember your helmet.